Hi, Aries. This is your Pisces season reading. All information to work with me one-on-one is below. Sorry. I was just coughing from, I'll probably be vaping throughout this. Okay, so Pisces season. All information to work with me one-on-one is below, as well as the Patreon link to this reading. The extended version of it. Sorry, I have something in my eye now. Okay. We're all good over here. We're just working through it. So yeah, all information work with me one-on-one is below, as well as the extended version to this reading, which we get more in depth. That is on Patreon. You can also see different versions of that. I feel like they just get better and better personally, so please check those out. And happy early birthday to those of you Aries out here. First things first that jumped out is the Page of Cups. I'm going to pull a few more. So a lot's been brought to my attention during this season already. Coming into the season was some real salt water, out of left Pisces emotional stuff, right? So I'm not saying that's what's happening with you. The Hermit just came out next. So we have the Cup with the fish, and then we have the Lantern. They're both facing the same way. I'll show you in a moment. I'm saying that to say that there will be patience that we all have to have this month. That is like the major theme. There's going to be some things you might have to work through with patience, and that's the only way to really heal, especially if you're someone who has been healing from relationships, healing from dynamics, healing, from any of those things, reprogramming from childhood, teenage years, your 20s, if you're in your 20s, whatever is happening with you. And the Hermit comes out already. I didn't mean already. The Hermit comes out, and already we have Virgo energy appearing, this full moon that's coming up. This will be out by then. Ooh, this card is flipped over, so we're just going to use it. The Hierophant. Okay. Lots of grounding. Lots of introspection. This month may have already brought in opportunities, dynamics, creative ideas, and insights about maybe what you decide to progress on, as opposed to what you choose to not progress on. And if it's because things just align in the way that they do and you just go with that flow, or is it the least resistance? Because there's something here where you are understanding, you are learning, you are growing in a way of your values, and the way that you also gain insight to yourself, to your life moving forward. You also may be presented with something recently, whether it be an idea or you proposing an idea. Especially about actually committing to this idea or this person. I do think this is creative for most of you, but we'll go about it the other way in just a moment. So let's go through it first. There is a certain weight and a certain feeling, an observation you come to when you decide on, or when someone presents something that could ultimately have you commit, right? And we're going to use that context, and it's what you give your energy to, right? It's not just about a commitment of a business partnership or the idea that you have or they have. It's not just about romantic opportunities, right? Or a date, or someone wanting to move further, maybe get engaged, maybe get married. this is the introspection you go through once that's presented to you. You may think about it here and there, and you may feel like when it's finally presented to you, there have been times, perhaps, this also fell out, where it was easy to be more impulsive. However, at this time, a lot can grow. We're in a very fertile season. A lot can happen. What's happening with you is a lot in your subconscious. So it is very fair this month, Aries, and I feel like I felt drawn to do your reading first. It won't be out first, but I felt drawn to do it first. And I just want you to know that sometimes I like to make a little sidebar. I like to make the sign of the birthday that I'm doing like special. I put a little bit, I feel more pressure because I really do want to give you my best at that time. Not that I don't. At other times, it's just, there's more to it. I think you know what I mean. More energy. So I'll sometimes do a sign before, even if I don't put them out first. I'll do a sign before I do the sign of the month that the birthday is in, because I want to make sure that it's not just the pressure, that I get the pressure off by doing something first, right? So now I'm like, why am I telling you this? Okay. That's what you need to do. You need to not promise or overcommit yourself right now, especially if it doesn't feel right, and especially if you're really at a time of wondering and concerning yourself of where you are putting your energy, and where, especially in terms of like, again, commitments, work, your thoughts. Like, where are your thoughts bringing you lately? Are you worried about things? Do you want to make more clear decisions in areas where things feel a little bit more gray? Right? Maybe you want that. Some of you were brought to this because you had to maybe go to a wedding or to a funeral. You had to go somewhere where, and I'm sorry, and I'm also excited for those of you who had the opposite experience. You had to go somewhere where, and this doesn't always come up with the Hierophant, because it's the, earthly spiritual. It's the religion, church, spirituality to an extent. You may have a spiritual moment this month in a spiritual place. It could be a church. It could be a place of worship. It could be something to that extent. We're just going to stop there. And there's this part of you that may have understood something that you didn't maybe before. That, weirdly enough, you maybe have been invited to this place as well, and you just went, and it could have been a wedding, right? Could have been any of those things. And you may have found yourself really enjoying the experience you're having in this kind of place, in this specific place, right? And for some of you, it could be meditation, right? It could be wherever it is that you feel like you're in devotion, where you can feel free to feel, right? Another thing, recently I went to a funeral, and I hadn't been in a church in a while, and I grew up Catholic, so I used to go to church once a week, twice a month, or sometimes twice a week for school. Anyway, you get the idea. And we could say what we want. That priest was awesome. I really listened, and when I was younger, I would and wouldn't, because I do find that faith is important, clearly. Like, this is what I'm here for. This isn't for just your entertainment only. Hopefully it is entertaining for you, though, always. However, in a light of my own values and whatnot that I put into this, but something maybe opened up in you. It appears that there is a change that has happened. So we have the Hermit, the Hierophant, and the Sun after the Page of Cups. We're going to go back over this in the ways of love, of course, and how you move about your day-to-day life, but this is what's coming up first. You are being opened up to a side of yourself, maybe that can feel safer. So sometimes joy, right? The lack of joy can come to the lack of what I've learned about joy is you have to feel safe with yourself to experience it. Just like, you know, sometimes it feels safer to be angry or to be sad because that's the feeling that was allowed, or that's the feeling that felt most comfortable, right? But there's this joy that can come from having deep faith in something, and wherever you are, knowing that you're going to be okay, and then you're able to experience more joy. I think there's something that's created. As someone who has dealt with a lot of sadness in my own life, I've also experienced a lot of joy. So that's wanting to come through, and that comes in terms of, and I feel like it's coming through even more now that you're being brought these very in-depth thoughts. Not that you don't have these areas, you're just being presented in your life a lot of different areas or connections or directions, and you find yourself being excited because people are excited to work with you maybe, and you're being, you know, you're being given like some light, especially, or expertise in an area, and people are drawn to you. And of course, who doesn't love that, especially for your ego? But you're at this point where you're like, okay, that's cool, but I wanna do this right this time. I wanna do this for me. Or you're being brought to like, well, why am I doing this? Like, what is the point of all of these different avenues? And or how do I choose? Where do I invest my time and energy right now? So those things, some of the things could be put on the back burner, maybe, you know, it just finding what's most important to you, maybe sitting down and wondering what first comes to your brain and why, and making certain questions of yourself before jumping into or rushing into any decisions. That's just what's coming up this month. And anyone trying to rush you, know that if you feel resistance to that, and that's something like that you would have done before, even if you are impulsive at first, give yourself the grace and allowance to come back and say, maybe not too far after, to change your mind, right? To change your mind instead of overcommitting and not being able to really give your energy. What that will result in is you really look at what maybe having these kinds of conversation about what you're really feeling, what you're really going through, what you're able to do, especially if you have invested a lot of time, money, and resources into something. You want to think before, right? And how you may have gotten yourself stuck before is just going maybe through motions, right? You're now seeing where this doesn't have to play out the same way. The difference now has to do with that you're looking at something, not that you haven't been practical, but in this particular area, you're feeling more practical. And why did I bring up faith before? I just want to touch on that really quickly. Pisces season. Right? Saturn's in Pisces. We'll go through more of it in the second part. And then we have Pluto and Aquarius. There's this extra emphasis on like, what do you believe in? Right? What have you been taught to believe in? What's been brought to your attention? Then what are the questions you have for yourself? And you're allowing these answers to come through in different aspects, and maybe even just through pure emotion, right? Allowing things to move left a little bit if they have to. Because you're speaking to a part of you that may have felt stuck. And it could have come from maybe not feeling like you were empowered enough to be in control of your decisions. And here you have a choice and a chance to open that up and redirect it in a way that's more authentic, as opposed to what may have been demanding of you. And maybe there's a part of you that wants to ask for more and demand more in a certain area, but your energy's been caught up in the opposite, right? So something I've realized with dynamics, and this can be said in many different ways, so I'm going to start here and see where we go. So many of us are, I just see it, it's interesting, like as we go through changes and as we observe, like even just like on social media or on the different ways that whatever media comes out with next, like whatever we're being presented with, right? We see those dynamics in culture, and I'm guessing like, okay, this is probably the most general thing in culture right now, and that's, we can see it in all different ways. Anyway, and there's many different ways it comes out. I hope that makes sense. You are being asked to put this demanding, powerful part of yourself into a certain area that's more authentic. What's happening is it may be coming out, projecting out in a way that is not actually true, because you're not putting it in, you're not expressing it in the way you really mean it. Why does that happen? Well, our nervous systems are so used to a specific way that even if it's not hard for someone else to do, it could be difficult for you to do, right? So this feeling of change within the nervous system and in the body can hold you back from wanting to push through to the change. Like, you have no problem taking on someone if you have to, or stepping up to the plate or up to the fucking battle line, right? But in other areas, it may be difficult for you to ask for your needs in a way that is easier, perhaps. And that's just me. I'm not saying that to read you. I'm just saying that to use an example. So if that is you, which it's not just you, don't worry, but it's in a certain way, it will allow you to be out of your head a little bit more. And it's funny because you're like, well, you just said I'm going to be more introspective, that I'm going to be thinking more. Yes, but you don't want that to cloud and clog your ability to act and your ability to do, right? That's a really big part of you, if not the biggest part of you, is to be able to go and do as you do. The change is coming from how before, where you felt stuck or sluggish, and it's now feeling more vulnerable because that's shifting, right? You have to expose yourself. Things are being exposed about you and about others around you. This is Pisces season. Lots of exposure this month. And if you haven't already seen it, it's coming. I'm sorry, it's coming. And it's going to be coming after you have this very spiritual experience. It could be around the full moon. You may have also learned last month coming through from the month that it's very clear that maybe that's what this Aquarius shift is pulling out of you, is this truth, It's a very real aspect of you, a really clear, and it's like you maybe come into this month unsure, right? We start with the Page of Cups, and as you go through it, there's a transition. There's much of a transition, but you go through it and you realize it doesn't have to be that difficult, but yet it's showing you where your perspective of where you're standing was a lot harsher. Maybe you put a little, again, that pressure maybe from before, this pressure that you're putting upon yourself. And now you have more of an ability to reveal yourself, but you also feel that salt water, that cleansing, that healing from it. You feel the change, the full change in the cycle. You feel the full ending. You feel where things begin. And this time it's different. It's different than Aries, I want to say, and this is a very big assumption It may feel different than it's ever felt in your life. Maybe you felt it here or there a couple times, but this is it's a big shift, right? You're experiencing this, wherever Aquarius is in your chart, and we'll keep talking about this through this year, of course, because we're really shifting into it. And as the years come about, your Aquarius placement, which if you have a traditional chart, your Aries is in the 1st house, and then your Aquarius would be in the 11th. So you can think about that, like the places, groups you're involved in. You may just find a huge change of space, of direction, and when that becomes clear, you kind of just, you show up here and there, but right now everything else can be just noise because you're ready. By next month you'll want to be ready. You're just like getting ready, like, you know, this is like the pregame. This is the pregame. If we want to put it that way, we're gonna call it the pregame. And you know how sometimes that's even more fun than the anticipation of the actual game, right? It's where you hang out and enjoy. That's where everything actually begins. Yeah. All right. We're gonna get more. I'm excited to get into the second part. We'll see you there. Link below.